Let's talk about the year that was for everybody's favourite second team, Fiji. Well, actually, I think Portugal probably can lay claim to that for quite a few people, ever since they beat Fiji at the Rugby World Cup, of course. But everyone loves it. Everyone loves Fiji. And how has their 2024 been? Yesterday, I looked at England, and Argentina and Australia are already in the bank as well, and they're in the feed. I'm doing every single one of the top 12 nations in alphabetical order. So here we are at Fiji today. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss France or Ireland or all of the ones that are coming in the days ahead. Leave your thoughts down below on Fiji as well. A memorable 2024 for them. Let's start with that fact because, well, Fiji won a tournament this year. The Pacific Nations Cup expanded for 2024. USA and Canada added to what was already a competition between Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, and Japan. And Fiji came out on top once again. Elsewhere in their performances through the year, a good win away in Georgia. That was a really solid win. A couple of teams that are vying for that, wanting to be at the top table with the quote unquote tier one nations. And yeah, I'll come to Georgia in a future video. But there we are with Fiji, and they then a heavy defeat to New Zealand. 4 wins in the Pacific Nations Cup, including a really strong win in the final against Japan. Heavy defeats against Scotland and Ireland, but a very memorable first ever win in Cardiff in the November series as well. A highlight of the year for them. An 18th ever victory for Fiji against a tier one nation. And they've still got to beat the ones they've got to tick off their list. They haven't won in Argentina, in South Africa, in New Zealand, or in Scotland or Ireland. Overall, for the year, they are played 10, won 7, lost 3, 70% record, obviously. And their world ranking has gone from 10th to 9th. They jump above Wales in the world rankings, the team that they beat. And I think when you look at it overall, I think it's been a really positive year for Fiji. Again, when they're playing teams that are around them, Japan, Georgia, Wales, they're very, very competitive and actually better than those teams as things currently stand. But there is a bit of a gap and a huge bridge to cross to be able to compete with Scotland, Ireland, and New Zealand, the 3 teams that they played through 2024, and the other teams that are a bit higher up in the world rankings. It's quite a big leap to close that gap, isn't it? And I'm not sure that we're going to see it. I really hope that we do. And if I were at the top of world rugby and trying to manage our sport, that would be one of the measurables that I would be looking at. Okay, the objective that I want to get to is that Fiji can turn up at a Rugby World Cup and be a genuine contender in 20 years' time. And I would work back from there. What would we need to do to make that happen? And well, obviously there's a lot of short-term thinking, a lot of money's tight, let's grab the cash. And I'm not sure it's going to help the tier 2 teams as much as I would like to see. But in terms of Fiji, as an assessment of their squad, at the minute, loads of massive positives. Obviously, the one issue that Fiji always battle against is the availability of their top players. They have a lot of guys that play abroad, mostly in the top 14 in France, some in England, a couple in England, Ironi Maui and Sam Matavesi's gone to France now, isn't it? Albert Tuisui at Gloucester, loads in the top 14. I mentioned Matavesi. In fact, you can make a whole 15 out of players that are playing abroad, particularly in the top 14. Tangi and Matavesi in the front row, Leon and Bayon respectively, Joshua Tuisova at Racing and Nalanga at Claremont, Makala at Bayonne, and Batitu at Cast, Vinacolo at Toulon. They've got some outrageous, particularly outside backs, always have had. And there are some good young players coming through, though. That 19-year-old lad, what's his name? Taranga Thoka at Stade Francais looks to be an outrageous talent. And I really, really hope that playing in the top 14, these players aren't put in a situation where they have to pick their club over their country. I'd love to think that they will continue to be able to do both. Caleb Muntz, the man there, has made a massive difference to Fiji. A big loss at the Rugby World Cup due to injury. He just kind of pulls, he's the glue in that team, just pulls things together, gets them in the right part of the pitch, does the nuts and bolts brilliantly, and then, as he showed in that game against Wales, that brilliant win, can make a break and do something very, very Fijian as well. Joshua Tuisova, some of these guys that have been around for a while, Randrandra, Nyatalevu, there's another couple of great players that I didn't mention before. They are getting a little bit older, but there are lots of young guys coming through. There's McCalla there. I've already mentioned Taranga Thoka at Stade Francais. There's a lot of young guys, and what's different about Fiji now is they are not only reliant on the players that play abroad in the top 14, they're growing their own close to home, which is helping the coaching staff and the national team massively. The Fijian Drua development has been one of the big positives, I think, in world rugby over the last couple of years. They're playing in the Super Rugby Pacifica Championship. They have a squad of players. There's somewhere for Fijian players born on the island to go to play elite level rugby or high level rugby, and a pathway towards the national team. And that is massive. And under Mark Evans, who's done a lot of good work in various roles in rugby, he's doing a great job there overseeing the Fijian Drua. They are getting better, and they've got a lot of young guys that are getting really good exposure to high-level rugby, which is preparing them for international rugby. And what's really noticeable is that when you look at Fiji's squad for the November tests, the bulk of the squad is the Fijian Drua squad, and they're just supplementing it with some of those superstars that play in France. And that's a great balance. That's a really good way to be, because it was kind of feast or famine for Fiji a lot of the time, where they would either have all their stars that play in France, or they'd have complete unknowns who were out of their depth. There still is a massive gap between when Fiji have all their players available and when it's just the Fijian Drua players, but that gap will keep closing. And so for all the criticism of the administration of rugby at international level, at club level, I think Fijian Drua is one of the real big positives for rugby full stop through 2024. I know it's been a project that's been going for a couple of years now. Long may it continue. As for the work-ons for Fiji, availability, as I've been talking about, can they keep getting their big superstars? Inevitably, some of those Fijian Drua players will catch the eye of a big French team, a Premiership club. They'll get a nice offer. They deserve to earn what they can while they're playing. Hopefully, that isn't at a compromise to their international ambitions. Opponents, are they still going to keep getting top-level fixtures? The talk is that they're going to be rolled into this new Nations Championship that's due to start in 2026, and they would be one of the 12 teams. It's a shame for other countries like USA and Canada and Tonga and Samoa and Georgia. Far from perfect, and some teams are going to be left out. It looks like Fiji will be one of the teams that are included, and for them, that's a real positive. Front five is always going to be an area, and for the smaller nations, this is one of the difficult areas to fill. Halfback and front five forwards. Fiji have got some good young players in that area. What's the chap's name? Hetet, who plays for Drua. Someone that's come through like a giant man, 140 kilos. And I mean, these are just rare specimens. Fiji have the physical specimens. If they can craft them into really good, competent rugby players, then they could be in business and they could continue punching above their weight. And the final one I've just put there is identity. So I did notice this through November. Did Fiji move away from the Fijian traditions? And is that a good thing? I thought maybe the balance is skewed a little bit too far, that they're playing quite a rigid, structured style of rugby as a national team. They're doing what everyone else does with the pod of forwards in a three and a triangle with the fly half Caleb Muntz out the back, and you can pop it out the back or you can tip it onto the forward, carry it up. Maybe it got a little bit too structured. I think it's great that Fiji are addressing what has been traditionally the weaknesses in their game, set piece, structure, and they're addressing that. But I don't want Fiji to stray too far from what is the DNA that makes them magic. And yeah, so I don't know if they turn the dial a bit too much. It just needs to come back a bit. But hey, coaches know better than I do, and they've done a really good job in 2024. I'm giving Fiji an 8 out of 10. They won the Pacific Nations Cup. They beat Wales for the first time ever in Wales. Heavy defeats, but against really good opposition. Away in New Zealand, away in Scotland, away in Ireland. Let's see some big countries go into Suva and giving the local Fijian public a big spectacle there. Let's see the spoils of World Rugby and all the cash being spread out to nations like Fiji. Let's help the development of the Fijian Drua, and let's keep pressuring all these big clubs to not make it a club or country battle, and make sure there's a place for both. And if so, Fiji can go from strength to strength and take more big scalps as they have done in 2024. There you go. What do you reckon? Let me know in the comments down below. 8 out of 10. Any advance on that? Hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you on the next one.